I'm sure to get a brain.
Uh-huh.
The name.
Hello and welcome.
Religious nerdiness is so extreme it's actually dangerous.
We are not the Scarecrow Ministries, demonstrating daily the truth claims of Christianity.
Christianity made me talk like an idiot.
Changing minds, hearts, and homes with the love of Christ.
No wonder some atheists just think the whole of religion is ludicrous.
We are not the Scarecrow.
Very large family. I have four brothers and 5 sisters. Well, no, I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters. I'm the 5th sister. But of the 5 girls, I am number 4. Okay, so that's important because my mother, when she was growing up, had these dolls, these very fancy China dolls. She had 4 of them. And she told us kids, that us girls, when we got old enough, each one of us was going to get a doll. And of course, you can do the math. You know, there's 5 girls, but I'm number 4, and there's 4 dolls. So I'm supposed to get a doll. Well, for some unexplicable reason, my mother decided to give a second doll to my oldest sister. So here I am expecting to get a doll. And I had even kind of gloated to my little sister, I'm going to get a doll, and you're not going to get a doll. Well, no, I'm not getting a doll. So it wasn't that I hoped to get a doll, because hope is like you're not sure you're going to get it, but you know you're really praying for it. But I expected to get a doll, because expecting is like, you know, it's in the mail. It's just a matter of time till it gets here. You know it's coming. So I was expecting a doll, and then there was no doll. So my expectations went unmet. Now, before you start feeling sorry for me, okay, I got over this 50 years ago. I'm okay with that. Besides, these were some really creepy dolls. Okay, they were China, and they had the, you know, the eggshell China faces, and their hair had been all yucky, and my mom had taken them to some doll shop, and they sewed new hair on them, and they had the China hands and the China feet, and you couldn't play with them. They were China. You had to like leave them wrapped up in a sheet on a shelf in the closet. So it wasn't like I got to play with this thing. But not only that, it was kind of scary to think that that thing was in my closet while I was sleeping at night. So don't feel too sorry for me. But at the time, I was angry and I was frustrated because I had an expectation that was unmet. And when we have expectations that are unmet, we get angry and we get frustrated. Am I the only one? I suspect some of you have had some unmet expectations in your life, such as, I don't know, maybe you nailed a job interview and you were told it was yours, and then it didn't come through. Or maybe your older brother got a car when he was 16. So you fully expected that you would get a car when you turned 16 and it didn't happen. Or how about just getting out on the road every single day? You expect, you don't hope, you expect the drivers to obey the rules of the road, use their blinkers, drive in the correct lane, and so on, and then they don't do it. And what happens, it's not like you hoped that they would, and oh darn, your hopes are dashed. You expected it. And so when you expect it and it doesn't happen, it really feels unfair. And there's anger and there's frustration because you expected it, darn it. It was supposed to happen and it didn't happen. Have you ever wished you could have the little card on a stick in your car and be like, use your blinker, dummy, you know, or get out of the left lane? Because you get so frustrated. But what happens is that anger and that frustration turns us into jerks, doesn't it? And what God wants, especially being a new year, we have a brand new start. I just love that we get a brand new start every year. God wants us to sacrifice that urge to be, to get that revenge, that urge to be treated fairly, that anger and that frustration, to give it up as a sacrifice to Him, which is better for us anyway. Why would we want to hold on to all that? But we do, don't we? We hang on to it. Darn it, I want that revenge. That guy, he passed me without turning on his blinker, and darn it, I'm going to pass him back. Or he's driving slow in the left lane, and as I go by, I'm going to honk at him. We hang on to that. We're so desperate to get that revenge. But it just wears us out, and it just drags us down, and it turns us into a bunch of jerks. So God is asking us to sacrifice those unmet expectations. Just give it to Him, and we in return get a life of peace and joy and happiness, because it's like, oh, God, you saw it. You saw that guy, we didn't even turn on his blinker and he cut me off or whatever. You saw that, God. Here it is. I give it over as a sacrifice. And I say, you think, well, okay, that sounds funny, giving that up as a sacrifice. But we do. We hold on to those things. It really is sometimes a sacrifice to just let it go. So we've had struggles, you've had struggles, I've had struggles. Believe it or not, there's a guy in the Bible that had unmet expectations to the max. And I am sorry to say that he handled it way, way better than I did. And he needs to be our example today. The guy I'm talking about is found in Genesis chapter 15, if you want to go ahead and stand up and turn there. Starting in verse 1, I'm talking about Eliezer of Damascus. This guy, well, we're going to read his story. So I'm going to start in verse 1. Everybody got it? It says here, now let me go ahead and just explain where we're at. Abraham had been, well, he was still Abram at this time. He had been called out of Ur with his family. He went to Haran, and then his father died, and then God called him out of there. And he and Lot came out, and they started wandering around. And he and Lot had so much stuff that they split. And then, of course, the kings came along and took Lot and all of his stuff, and Abraham had to go rescue him. And then Melchizedek came along, and Abram at this time gave him a tenth of all that he had. So God has really blessed him, and that's where we pick up the story in chapter 15. So it says, after all these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, do not fear, Abram. I am a shield to you, and your reward shall be very great. And Abram said, O Lord, what will you give me, since I am childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus? And Abram said, since you have given me no offspring, one born in my house to me will be my heir. Then behold, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, the man will not be your heir, but the one who will come forth from your own body, he shall be your heir. Let's go ahead and pray. Lord, I just pray that you take these words of yours, Father, let them sink deep into our hearts today, Father, as we start this new year, and let us learn as the time grows short to just do all these things that you need us to do, and trust you and give it all over to you, Lord, and serve you with joy and gladness and gratefulness of heart. In the name of Jesus, amen. You may be seated. So, I suspect that Eliezer knew, I'm pretty sure he knew, that he was going to be the heir of everything that Abram had. Now, Abram was very, 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 very rich. So here's Eliezer. He's going to be the heir of all of this. And I guarantee you, he was the best servant ever. Whenever a camel was having a baby, there he was, taking care of that little camel baby, whatever you call a baby camel, because one day that would be his. And then, when something happened over here, the crop or something, there was Eliezer. Because I guarantee you, he was thinking, one day this will be mine. Not that he didn't love Abram and all that stuff, but, one day this is going to be mine. And so he took extra good care of it. And when Abram called him to do something, I bet he was right there. Yes, Lord, whatever you need, I will do it. He was the best servant ever because he expected. It wasn't just a hope. He didn't hope. Here was Abram, no kid. Abram's already 75. He's already too old. Sarah's already too old, unless a miracle comes along, which of course we know did, but he didn't. So at that age, there is going to be no heir. So Eliezer expected to get this inheritance. He expected it. So and it's not just like some man came along. It was God himself who came along and told Eliezer, nope, sorry, not yours. Not just some guy that Eliezer can fight, but this is God himself who snatched this inheritance, this huge inheritance, out of Eliezer's hands. Talk about unmet expectations, because you can't even fight God. God himself says, Eliezer, get out of the way. I'm going to bring in another guy. And guess what? Not only that, but you're going to be his servant for the rest of your life. You are never going to be an heir of all of this. But because you're a servant in Abram's house, once Isaac is born, guess what? You're going to be his servant. That's like being told you got to train the guy who's going to take your job. You know, he's going to come in and take your job. But first you got to train him, and then you're out. So here's Eliezer thinking he's going to be the heir of all of this, and then God himself comes along and says no. But I want to point out, and you don't have to stand it because I'm just going to pick at some scriptures here. If you go to chapter 24, if you want to, you can. But in chapter 24, Abraham, now his name has been changed to Abraham now, so I can stop stumbling over it. But Isaac has now been born, and Abraham needs a wife for Isaac. And it says here in in chapter 24, verse 1 and 2. Now Abraham was old, advanced in age, and the Lord had blessed him in every way. Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he owned, all of Jewish tradition going back as far as we can look, says this is Eliezer, still the same guy. Okay? So not only doesn't he get the inheritance, but now he's got to start like serving this guy who took his place. But it says, you know, he goes on and he says, I need you to go find Isaac, your master, a wife. Now, if I was Eliezer, and being the selfish person that I am, and I'm so selfish and so about me, I would have been so upset. It would have been really hard to be nice. Not only would it have been hard to be nice to Abraham after that, but it would have been really hard to be nice to Isaac at all. But let's take a look at what he does. So Abraham says, I need you to go find Isaac a wife. And I go over here to verse 10, and it says, then the servant took 10 camels from the camels of his master. Do you think he was thinking, those were my camels? My camels. But no, he says he took the camels and a variety of good things. Those good things that were my good things. They were mine. They were mine. And now they're not. And I go down here to verse 12 and I read what he says, O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today. How can he pray that? Except that he had let it go. He understood something that I think we miss today in America. God's got plans sometimes, and those plans maybe don't include us the way we hope or think they will. Sometimes God just flat out needs us to get out of the way, to let somebody else do something. But we're so busy wanting to be the center of everything. And here's Eliezer. He understood that. He gave that. I mean, nothing we could get today could match what Eliezer was supposed to have gotten. The wealth, the power of becoming the new patriarch. He would have been a patriarch because Abraham was a patriarch. Nothing we get would equal that. But yet, look at his reaction to this versus what my reaction would be. My reaction would have been, Isaac, I'm going to go get over camels. I'm only going to bring him 7. You know, that's what I would do because I'm so selfish and I'm so greedy and I'm so about me and how dare and all of that. But his reaction just really shocks me. But here's the one that really, really shocks me. So Eliezer goes and he finds Rebekah. And he says here in verse 27, it says, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his loving kindness and his truth toward my master. And as for me, the Lord has guided me in the way to the house of my master's brothers." Why not rather be cursing? God, how could you let this happen? Now he's going to have a kid, and if I'm still alive, darn it, I'm going to have to serve his kid too. That's just the way we in America think. But his reaction is so different. He had the heart of a servant, a real heart of a servant, who understood that his master's, the goal that God had for his master was just so much more than himself. And he was willing, even if it was like being the little, shoe polisher in the kingdom rather than the master in the kingdom, he was okay with that. He was okay to be the little shoe polisher in the kingdom if that would make the kingdom greater. See, and we're so busy holding on to all of our little unmet frustrations and angers, instead of taking this example and saying, God, I just give that to you. The time is getting short for us. Look at what's going on in America today. We've got this election coming up. We've got, the whole thing with Iran. We've got the LGBTQ. The Methodist Church is getting ready to split. How many of you saw that in the news? There is so much going on. God needs us as prayer warriors and as Christian examples and witnesses, instead of sitting around at our own house holding on to all of our little petty things, we need to offer that up to God as a sacrifice and get on about his kingdom, whether we are the master or the one washing the feet. We should be just as pleased. See, I personally think that Eliezer's reward in heaven was huge. And that was what was important to him, rather than the little bit of wealth he got on earth. And that brings me to the last few scriptures I'm going to read here. I'm going to flip into the New Testament over to Hebrews. Right past it. Chapter 11, chapter 11, the faith chapter. They talk about in chapter 11, they talk about how, like Abraham by faith did this, and Sarah by faith did that, and Gideon and Barak, and there's not enough time in the world to tell all the wonderful things that these people did by faith. But the one that gets me is in verse 39, and it says, "And all of these, having gained approval through their faith, did not receive what was promised." Those people lived and trusted and had unmet expectations all the time, but they just kept living by faith, and still they died, not getting what was promised. Because what was promised to them was also promised to us, and we all came together at the cross. But those people lived and died, and all those 2,000 years that went by of each one of them. And we know that there's time in heaven, because the souls under the altar in the book of Revelation say, "How long, O Lord?" And he says, "Just a little while longer." So imagine Abraham dying 2,000 years and being wherever he is for 2,000 years, awaiting the promise, the fulfillment of the promise, awaiting, not getting it yet, but being faithful, having sacrificed all of his own needs over to God, so that he could get his, and not only Abraham, but all of them, Isaac and Jacob and all of them, all through the ages, to get their reward the same as we do, all together at the cross. So I'm going to leave you with this final verse in chapter 12, verse 1. Therefore, since we have such a great cloud of witnesses surrounding us, and each one of them, again, did not get, all their expectations in life were unmet, but each one of them gave that over to God anyway, sacrificed it, and lived by faith regardless, and died not getting what they thought, that all the things God promised, they died and didn't get it yet, but they continued to trust God anyway. So that's where we need to be. And even if the things that we think God owes us, or the things that we have asked God for and we're expecting, we might die not getting them, or we might get them, a minute from now or 20 years from now, because God's timing we don't understand. But we need to live by faith the same as this great cloud of witnesses did. Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. This is one of my most favorite verses. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So I'm asking as we start, and it's just as much for me as it is for you, because I'm just as guilty of all of it. But as we start 2020, we need to take all of those unmet expectations in one hand and balance it out with the great glory of God and His purposes and His ultimate goals, knowing that all of this is going to go in here, and we have an eternal life promised, and we can fully expect that He will meet that. So we don't maybe get everything we need on earth, but we expect in heaven. So we sacrifice our little petty expectations on earth and instead focus on the expectations that God has for us in the future. Amen? Let's go ahead and stand and pray.
Thank you for joining us today. And for more great resources, be sure to check out our website at www.notthescarecrow.com. If you'd like to contact Dr. Seifert, you can send an email to scarecrow@notthescarecrow.com. Or if you'd like, you can write us at P.O. Box 8933, Greenville, Texas 75404. May God be with you in mind, heart, and soul.